let's get Andrew home for dinner. I'd like to call an order of the meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Let's please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Messing with you, Dick?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we have with us in our packets, we received a copy of the minutes from our August 28th meeting. Do I hear a motion for approval?
Move to approve.
Motion made by Selectman Nobley. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Keen. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Minutes pass. We're moving on to our communications and announcements.
You're late.
We received a memo from Chief Gray recommending that we schedule, or that we set aside the hours of 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, October 31st for trick-or-treating. This is to help just make sure the community knows when to expect kids knocking at their door. So that's consistent with what we've done in the past. And so he submitted that in the agenda, and I don't know if there's any questions. We've had debates in the past about this, but
You're not gonna, right?
no, it's not. No, it's simply communications. I think that we should follow the advice of the police department, and surely last year we sparked quite a contentious debate. I think that until we hear again, from the community and they want us to do something, I will lay it rest. So there's that. Then we also have this evening, any questions about that?
Halloween on Halloween.
Trick.
It's Christmas, not Christmas.
That's on a future agenda.
So it depends. Are you Greek? See, look at that. See, you just don't even go down that road.
Don't stop.
You're really,
Stop the discussion.
So,
quit while we're ahead, okay?
so speaking of being ahead, we do have with us this evening Jim Stanford, our DPW director, who's coming up this evening to address trash and recycling and giving us good news about our new hauler. So, Jim, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As mentioned, I'm here to give an update on just some ongoings with the trash, recycling, and other events that we have planned. As mentioned, there's a staff memo to the town manager. I believe it's in your packet, so I'll follow along with that for the most part. On September 1st, the contract with JRM Hauling and Recycling went into effect. They are the new curbside trash, solid waste hauler. The contract with TBI Northside is still the same for recycling. That'll remain in place. At this point, it's been seamless for a resident or a customer view. The one difference is I think JRM is getting to areas a little quicker. So what's happening, we've had some missed trash pickups, mostly because some residents are used to being able to put their trash out a little bit later because the existing hauler maybe gets there a little later in the day. But those have been few and far between. It seems better starting today. We had less complaints. They've been in place now for 2 weeks. So for the most part, I think it's seamless. As we started with the new contractor, we also began looking at the routes themselves to see if there are some improvements. Historically, the Wednesday route, which is a pretty large route and pretty scattered, has been problematic. We've had a number of complaints relative to just trash not being missed, and they're not able to get to it in a day. So what we've decided to do is to break the route up and actually split a portion of it between the Monday and the Tuesday route. I did submit a map in your packet. We will be sending out postcards to, I think there are 850 residents or properties that will be impacted by that. Those notices should be going out in another week, within the week. In addition to that, we'll send out a robocall to the 850 properties or so. And then we'll have extra crews on the week that it goes into effect, which I believe is the week of October 16th. So we'll have crews on just to make sure that if people are missed, we'll pick up the trash and then we'll put another notice on the barrels. So we think by noticing it on the website, we believe that we should be able to get the majority of them. And again, a lot of people, once they see their neighbor putting it out on a certain day, they tend to follow. With that in mind, the trash barrels do need to be out on curbside by 7 a.m. And again, with the new contractor, they're just getting into areas just a little differently. But as long as you have it out by 7 a.m., it should be picked up. We also have JRM, they'll be doing the recycling, the leaf recycling. So we have 4 weeks scheduled for the leaf pickup in the paper bags. That'll be starting the week of October 30th and running November 6th, the week of November 6th, the week of the 13th, and the 27th. So we'll skip Thanksgiving week, but other than that, 4 weeks, we should be able to get the majority of them. Residents can also bring their leaf and yard debris to Sear Recycling Center on Sharpness Pond Road. You do need a permit that you can get through my office. They're $10 per vehicle. Residents over 65, it's $7.
So we usually get a request from some of the local landscapers to open the Sears Center extended hours for additional drop-offs. Is there plans to do that this year?
Not this year. Right now, and this is one of the things that I've been looking at since I've come to town, it's open 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 8 to 3. I think extending the hours will be somewhat problematic just from a budgeting standpoint. But also, one of the things I'm concerned about is just the darkness of the site, especially in the fall. But we're looking at those. We can certainly look at it. But right now, we don't have any plans to do that.
So Dick, wasn't it typically allowing, it was allowing them in on the Saturday? What was the change?
No, I thought it was, I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I thought it was extending it and opening on a Friday, where it's not currently open.
But I don't think it was the entire length of this. I'll have to look back as well.
No, it was
I
during the
apologize.
fall. It was during the heavy leaf collection
Could have been
period.
1 or 2 Fridays or something.
Yeah.
I'll look at it. We'll look back at it. I think what Mr. Valancourt is suggesting is something that it didn't get us into the darkness area, and it worked around some of the existing
Yeah, it
schedules.
was during the day on Friday. It was mainly benefited the landscapers that were doing a lot of leaf collection in town, to get
Yeah.
those.
It may have been 1 or 2. I'm trying to remember what it is, but we will look at what we've done in the past, and
Yeah.
I'll certainly relate that to Mr. Stanford so we can take a look at that. But I know we've been able to accommodate that in the past, and we'll take a look at it.
So that's it for our normal pickup. We do have a couple of special events that's on the agenda as well. If you'd like, I can get right into those. We have the Household Hazardous Waste Day. That's scheduled for Saturday, October 7th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that is at the TBI facility on 210 Holt Road. We have flyers. Flyers are attached. They're posted on the website. And then we have Lake Cochicowit, the shore cleanup. That'll be held on Saturday, October 21st from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m. We're looking for volunteers to meet at the Stevens Beach Lot. So hopefully, it was pretty successful last year, so we're hoping it to be as successful this year. The one thing, we did have it a little earlier this year. Last year, we tried to get the local college. They volunteered. The problem with having it in November, which is when they have their volunteer day, the leaves are off the trees. So we did schedule a little earlier this year, so hopefully we'll be able to clean it up a little better.
Did you still reach out to the college? Because
We have reached out. There was hope that maybe some of the sports teams who can't do the MAC Gives Back Day, that maybe they'd be willing to come in. So far, I haven't had much luck. I've been trying, though.
I think they have a requirement for so many service hours anyway, too, that they might have to fulfill.
Yeah.
I mean, not just the sports teams, but all the...
No, we've been reaching out. We'll continue. Again, the more volunteers we have, the better off we'll be with this. That's it for our events. Again, everything is posted on the town's website. If you go straight to the front page of the website, you can get right to the trash and recycling, and all this information is listed.
I have to say, September 1st, I was walking around the common about 6:45, and I saw an army of JRM trucks heading out. That was day one.
Yeah.
I think I
Just
took a
snapping
picture.
photos, yeah.
I did, I took a picture.
Strategically located in farmer's market frames.
Oh, yeah,
right there.
that's right, yeah, that was a good picture. Yeah, great, thank you.
So the 2 things, just to repeat, I know that Jim has said it a couple times. One was the route change is primarily driven by the fact that on the recycling end of things, they couldn't, if you notice the map, the Wednesday routes are really bifurcated, right? So that we have one up off toward the Osgood Landing side and one down by the Sharpness Pond Road side. It was, most of our complaints on recycling were centered around the Wednesday route, that they weren't being able to complete the Wednesday route. The Wednesday route was being picked up on Thursday, and sort of trickle down. So the recommended change in route wasn't coming actually off the new trash hauler who felt they could meet that route. It was to accommodate making sure that the recycling pickup on the Wednesdays was better than it historically had been. And the second reminder, as I know Jim has said it twice, is that in most communities, people put their trash out at 7, or hopefully not too much earlier than that, but not the night before. And here, because the trash had come at various times depending on the week, people were sort of timing the trash, and maybe sometimes putting it out at 9 or 10 or 11 in the morning. And now our trash hauler is in at 7 a.m. and comes with 2 trucks and fully staffed, and they're in and out of the community fairly quick. So make sure you get it out at 7 a.m. because if you're trying to time it to a later time, it could very well be when you bring it out if you've left town.
I think it's a long time coming. We've heard from those residents for many years,
For
and so
Wednesday people in particular.
yeah.
That's true.
So thank you for doing this and doing it
Great.
quickly.
Thank you.
So that is it for planned announcements. We do have this weekend the annual North Andover Merchants Association Fall Festival scheduled for
Get my calendar.
Saturday the 23rd from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the North Andover Common. That's put on by the North Andover Merchants Association, which this year is kind of divvying up their funds actually among different nonprofit groups that are helping them put on this community event. So the weather forecast, I don't know, hopefully it ends up being nice. I mean, I feel like it changes from day to day with the farmers market, so I hope that, fingers crossed, things work out this weekend for them. Any other events, announcements?
I think the,
Communication?
Nights on the Run is coming up too, right?
October 21st, I think.
Oh,
I can-
October 21st, okay.
Can I make a brief statement about, I know the board is aware, but read something that came from Osgood Landing regarding the Amazon discussion. So there's certainly been some press, not only in North Andover, but in some of the surrounding communities, Haverhill and Lawrence in particular, around the region's position on Amazon. So Amazon, for those of you who don't know, is looking for a second world headquarters. They issued through social media, sort of a request for proposals that outlines the kinds of things that they're looking for. They literally did not eliminate any site, I think, in all of North America as a way of beginning. It was a very creative way to do things. There is a strong belief that we possess the necessary attributes relative to the RFP to make a thorough and exciting response to what they put out in social media. Do we recognize that there'll be a lot of folks who feel the same? Probably. But we do believe as the state starts to focus on some priority sites that here in North Andover, specifically around the Osgood Landing site and to the region in terms of the assets that it brings, we believe that we can put forth a very thoughtful and exciting proposal, one that Amazon will certainly read and digest, and we're aggressively pursuing that. On behalf of the property owners of Osgood Landing, I certainly can read a brief comment from them. We are thrilled that Osgood Landing has been identified as a potential location for Amazon's second headquarters. It has always been our desire to see this landmark property return to the world-class campus it was designed to be. We look forward to supporting the Coalition of Merrimack Valley Cities and Towns being spearheaded by North Andover's town leadership to pursue this truly unique opportunity. For decades, businesses located at 1600 Osgood have been major economic drivers for North Andover and the entire region. We are confident that this property will once again serve as the cornerstone of the valley. So we appreciate that from the owners. I can tell you that we're have spent most of the last couple of days, myself and Erica Forey, the Director of Community and Economic Development, working with Andover and Haverhill and Lawrence, and encouraged to continue to work with Methuen as well for the purpose of putting together a regional proposal. We're speaking to the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission and others, state officials and legislative leaders, and certainly the board. So we're aggressively pursuing this. We think that we have a good story to tell, and we should be encouraged to do that.
Any idea what their timeline is beyond the submission of the RFP? Do they have a timeline?
Yeah, they're due to make a spring decision. I think they've identified as March, so it's October, I believe, 17th when the response needs to be back by, which is very aggressive. And we're working to sort of address that, because obviously it'll be a fairly comprehensive proposal, and we're committing a fair amount of staff and resources to try to get to that date. And then we expect that they will communicate back with, well, at least what we've been told is the selected site, I think, in the spring. There's a March date floating around there. I would expect that the dialogue isn't going to go silent between October and March. There'll be a fair amount of conversation about which sites are still in play. They've identified an interactive process, whereas you've had questions with whether your site complies, or as you're putting together proposals, they actually want you to communicate directly with them to get their direct feedback on it. So it's a fairly aggressive timeline, but it's a timeline that I think is worth pursuing. And obviously, we know that Osgood Landing has a proposal, or has continued to pursue the Mass, forget exactly the name of the facility, renovation works. And I think given the fact that this is both a long shot and the timeline of the Amazon proposal, we certainly have, we understand that it's Osgood Landing's position that they're going to continue to pursue that. It's a business after all, and I think taking 5 months off, hoping this happens, doesn't make sense. So I would expect they're going to continue to pursue that as they have, and that's their right, and we should support and encourage that. And at the same time, I think this is extraordinarily important and truly is game-changing, right? So we're going to commit a lot of time and energy to make sure that we're positioned to have a thoughtful and thorough and exciting response.
Are there other areas outside of Boston, Boston suburban areas that are submitting a response? Do we know? Are you in conversation with state level people to understand who we might be competing with just in Massachusetts?
Yes and yes. So I would expect there'll be other interested groups. We certainly are doing a level of communication and a level of reconnaissance right now, because some of them are known and some of them are not. So we're in contact with state folks about that, and then we're doing some, I'll identify it as reconnaissance to figure out where those are. I would expect that there would be, this is a guess, 4 to 6 sort of major plays toward this. There could be a number of other smaller plays, but if you look at the proposal and really benefit to the public, you can go off and read it. It's a really interesting proposal. There's certain things you need, and we certainly think we possess most, if not all of those, in some form or another, or can work toward those. And not every site will. Distance to Boston, you have to be in a fairly large economic area, of which we're sort of rolled into the Boston area from a population perspective. Access to an international airport, which in this case would be Logan, access to various forms of transportation, site control, zoning, those kinds of things. So we do think there'll be several others, and we're hoping we will continue, part of what we're doing is continue to communicate with the Commonwealth and have them recognize the importance of this site. We believe regionally, not only from a direct benefit to North Andover, but we can transform the region. I think we have good stories to tell in Lawrence. The Lawrence mayor is completely supportive. Good stories to tell certainly in Haverhill and in Andover, and I think Methuen and far-ranging area. They're talking about the region benefiting by 50,000 jobs. That is truly transformative to everything we know in the Merrimack Valley, and then what we would call the spillover economic development, right? New businesses to support those businesses. And so I would expect, given the substantial nature of this particular development, arguably the largest economic development initiative going on in the country, if not North America right now, I would suspect there'll be some others who are
It'd be
interested.
interesting to see how many RFPs they
I don't think
actually get.
I don't think we're going to be on an
the
island.
team to evaluate those.
But our first stage is to certainly identify why it is that we think that we are a player in that, and then certainly convey that not only to the Amazon folks, but to the state folks as well.
Right.
And we're working aggressively on that messaging to make sure that they recognize that it can be a game changer here, and we have the resources to participate in this process.
Andrew, have we looked at across the border? I know that Salem, I think, just falls outside of where the RFP would call for, but certainly there's a dramatic benefit to New Hampshire if this region gets it as opposed to Boston.
Sure.
And so even though we aren't aiming for it to be in southern New Hampshire, the benefits are so great that I know we keep talking about the state, but should we be talking about the states and engaging New Hampshire as well?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think one of the things to realize of this is it's been interesting both participating and watching the narrative a little bit. The simple way to look at this is if you could imagine in your mind's eye anything that you would call the region. So for some people the region is North Andover. Some people the region goes to Salisbury, and some people, the region goes down to Boston. Everybody is, but if you can imagine the region in any perspective, the idea of 8 million square feet and 50,000 jobs and everything that comes from that, housing stock, jobs that support those folks, higher education, transportation, you couldn't draw a big enough circle to define really the impact. I think that's the way to put it. So I think you're right. I think from our perspective, we want to be valid enough for all of those folks to recognize that. And any time that you read or see either our comments or others, and it identifies a region, and we may limit that conversation to sort of Haverhill and Andover and North Andover and Lawrence, we're doing that because we're having immediate conversations, and the properties in North Andover, and it borders those communities. But it should be recognized that this is mega regional, if there is such a term, and that even communities not mentioned extending into New Hampshire are impacted and can be impacted in a
Right,
positive
when
way.
Lucent was there, I mean, it was 1/5 the number of jobs
Yes.
proposed, right? 10,000, and the tentacles of the people that worked at Lucent were everywhere, all around this area. I mean, into New Hampshire, all over the North Shore, everywhere, South Shore. So it'll be huge, 50,000 jobs. It's just, I mean,
Absolutely.
hopefully they can, we get it here, they can staff it for 50,000. That'll be a good problem to have, but,
But I also think from my business, you get to know what people have enticed to coming to our area. We have world-class schools. We have world-class hospitals. We're close to the beaches, the mountains. We've got an airport in Boston. There's an airport in Manchester. We have a small regional airport for executive jets to come in. We have a lot to offer that other communities in other regions don't. So I think it's easy to pitch our area because it's based in fact. Massachusetts is known for the best public schools in the country right now. I mean, it's not only that, Boston is considered one of the cultural key spots in the United States for culture and theater and so forth and so on. Different, of course, than New York and LA, but we have a lot to offer. Shall we write? Well, I'll write it down.
yeah, let's capture all that.
The other thing that's interesting in this is, we're in the middle of our master plan.
Yes.
And so.
That'll change the plan a little bit.
True, but no matter where we go, just the process of this seems to me is something that could help inform, what we're looking at in terms of how we want to position this town and what's the possibilities within the town. So it's fortunate even in kind of in more of a local heads down perspective that we have a real opportunity here to kind of match this with our town master plan and that process. So.
There's nothing bad,
Right.
sort of dumb it down a little bit, there's nothing bad that can come out of an effort which recognizes or having us stop and reflect on everything that everybody has identified as the strengths of the region. Everything from, our ability to live in nice residential subdivisions and open space and access to beaches, to access to both white-collar and blue-collar workforces, our ability to access transportation, education. So all of those things will happen in the next month is all of those things from various different parties will sort of come to the surface and allow us to really recognize in many ways all those assets that we bring to the table, and then communicate that not only to the state officials, to repeat to them why we think this region is strong and should be prioritized in many different economic development initiatives, but also broadcast that beyond the immediate region into the state, outside of Massachusetts, so that folks recognize what economic development can mean to this region and what assets we bring to that conversation. And so this conversation, you're right, the timing is interesting and exciting, and we're really looking forward to spending a fairly intense 30 days or so exploring all those possibilities and continuing to express our thoughts and our excitement about that possibility. So it's ongoing. I can tell you there's a lot of communication in various forms around this, and it'll continue, and we are committing the resources necessary to make sure we put together a thoughtful proposal.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you,
I
Andrew.
think it's really exciting, and especially the collaboration with the other local towns and getting that all together and having everybody, kind of marching in the same direction with the same goal, and it's really a cool thing to have everyone coming together that way.
I think so.
Any other announcements?
Yes, sort of following up to the North Andover Women's Club Fashion Show, which is Friday, October 13th at the Stevens Estate. As I mentioned, we do have a few local celebrities from the men. The models in the women's category is club members, but I think the most important thing that I wanted to follow up on is that the club has decided where the money that we raise from this event will go, and working along with Rick Gorman at Youth Services, we hope to have this money go towards holiday meals and holiday gifts for any family in need, regardless of how they celebrate the holidays. We're looking to work with them and make it a nice holiday. And if there are sufficient funds and there's an excess, what we would hope to do with that money is make an arrangement through our public safety officers to reach out to a community in Florida or Texas with a donation that would help them as well. So we really are looking for support and donations. If you can't make it to the event but you want to donate to the cause, we can assure you that we'll be working very closely to make sure it truly gets to the needy. So we have a couple celebrities in the room, but we'll let them remain nameless. But we're grateful that they have offered to help. And it should be a really fun night. Fashions are from Chico's, Izzy's, and the gentlemen's fashions are from Joseph A. Bank. And we also will have some items coming from Dino. So it will be fun. It will be a fun night. So, and this is for men and women to buy tickets, because there are men's clubs. So please, everyone keep it in mind. It's all for a good cause. That's it. I'll hit you probably one more time before the event. But it was good to know where the money's going.
Just to follow up, the Nights on the Run is October 21st.
Thank you.
Benefits North Andover Athletic Association.
Another good cause.
Okay, is that it for announcements? So we'll move on to consent items. Actually, I do see, this is, I'm gonna recognize Jasenia Gill, who's here this evening for the Affordable Housing Trust, but we do also have Chief Gray, so I'm going to ask the board, humor me as I jump around to accommodate our two guests. So first, under consent items, we have a vote to approve a disbursement of $300,000 from the Affordable Housing Trust to Bread and Roses Housing for the purchase of 13 Anna Street. And we have Yesenia, who's here this evening from Bread and Roses. Thank you for joining us. This is great. We love seeing you. I love seeing you.
I'd love to see all of you as well. Good evening, first of all, Chairman, Board, Mr. Mailer, Laurie, Mr. Santini. I don't think we've met. But good evening to all. I'm glad to be back. Excited about another project. The project at hand is 13 Anna Street. I did meet with the Affordable Housing Trust last week, and they unanimously approved funding for the acquisition of 13 Anna Street. This would actually make the 6th affordable homeownership unit in North Andover, so congratulations. The portfolio is increasing day by day. So I respectfully request your approval on that. And I also wanted to just provide a little information since we last met, but before I do that, provide any updates, I will just open it up for any questioning about the property. This particular property is about 1,600 square feet. It is a single-family home, and it will receive some renovation, moderate rehab. We will then, of course, open it up to a family that is income eligible to acquire the property. We're hoping this particular property will come online about a month after both May Street properties, so 70 and 51. So we're hoping by Christmas, all of the families will be celebrating in their new homes.
I like this project because the other two have felt like you had to really jump on. This was one that, this particular property's been on the market for months, right?
Yes.
And it seems like it had come back on and off and on and off, so it's nice that you guys are going to go in there.
We did finally snag it. We put in an offer and had our eye on it, and it fell through our hands, but somehow the stars aligned. It was meant to be, and we were in a good position, and the trust agreed, and we had their full support to acquire the property, or at least to move forward to acquire the property.
Now, Lori gave us the income eligibility per person. For May Street, is that going to be the same?
It is.
Do you mind if I read that, just to let people
Not at
know? Of course, you can pick up a flyer, but to be eligible to be a first-time home buyer with household income less than 80% AMI, so two persons is 54,400, 3 persons is 61,200, 4 persons is 68,000, and 5 persons is 73,450. So the reason I say that, because again, I'm in this business, that some people might not think that they're income eligible, and because a lot of people are quite proud, and I think this gives people at least a chance to consider it, and I think that's really important. And then there's a series of a point system that
A selection.
goes into the selection process. For example, veterans get an extra point, and we're very pleased to hear that. But if you're at all interested or even curious, pick up the information and check it out. It might change the course of your family's life or your life, so.
I agree, Chairwoman. We did have 2 seminars that you just referenced. August 23rd and August 30th, we held 2 application seminars right here. Had a very good turnout. We had 39 individuals attend. So far, we've received 6 applications, and we're hoping to select from those 6 applications that were received 3 families. I am awaiting a couple more because the deadline was actually last Thursday, but it has to be postmarked Thursday, so we're waiting probably until the end of the week to ensure that if any other applications are received, we do receive those and review them as well. So at the moment, there are 6 applications to be reviewed, which is great, double what we need. But it may be that the families that have submitted the applications aren't in a position to move forward to acquire the property, in which case I would absolutely work with Lori to offer more application seminars for the 3rd unit. But we're hoping that since we have 6 applications, we held 2 seminars, that we'll be able to select 3 families from that pool of candidates. But you were absolutely right, and I'm sorry to go back to the point about income. It is more of a moderate income. Most of the communities that Bread and Roses Housing works in is more of a lower income, on the lower income tiered than North Andover. It's a little higher. It's more of a moderate income.
What does that exactly mean when it says 5 persons and 73,000? Does that mean 5 people who are earning money, or is that like 2 parents and 3 children?
It could be 2 parents and 3 children. As you know, we're living in a
Or one
modern
parent?
world. Yeah, absolutely. And, families, modern families, the makeup of a modern family is completely different than perhaps many years ago. But it could absolutely be 3 children, 2 parents. It could be a grandparent and someone who's working, and children or grandchildren. But it does mean 5 individuals in the household earning less than that cap that you just mentioned.
So you envision, though, that the pool of applicants you have is healthy enough that you may not even need to redistribute these flyers?
I anticipate so, simply because I did have conversations with most that actually submitted applications. They seemed very strong applicants. Again, I have yet to review all of the information, but just based on our conversations after the seminars, they seemed to have everything they needed to move forward. So I think, in fairness, they attended the application seminars and followed the process that I review what we have, and if I am incorrect, which I don't think I will be. They seem like very prepared families already living in North Andover, excited to be able to stay in North Andover, that will actually select 3 families.
So you said 39 between the two?
Between the 2 application seminars, we had 39 individuals attend.
Is that a good number of applicants to pick from, 6 with a pool like that, or?
Yes, it's always a numbers game. Everyone's excited about the opportunity. Then they understand that you are acquiring a property and you need credit and you need savings. And so when they understand what the requirements are, they may not be ready. In fact, I followed up with everyone who signed in to ensure that if they were mailing an application, that we indeed received it, so that it didn't get lost in the mailer. And a few indicated they did not apply because they just weren't ready. It was either a credit issue, not enough savings. So I think there's an opportunity to continue to work with those families. I have offered to pay for financial literacy training, which we do, to prepare them for the next opportunity. But of 39, yes, we received 6, which is still a wonderful outcome, actually.
Well, if there aren't any more questions, I would entertain a motion for one of my colleagues to approve the $300,000.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen, move that the Board of Selectmen authorize the Town Manager Andrew Mailer to execute a grant agreement between the North Andover Affordable Housing Trust and the Bread and Roses Housing, Inc., and approve disbursement of funds from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund in the amount of $300,000 for the acquisition of the property located at 13 Anna Street, North Andover, Mass.
Motion made by Selectman Valencourt. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Spadili. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. It passes. Thank you.
Thank
you
you
for doing
once
this.
again. Oh,
I think
no,
that it's
it's
great
our
that Bread and
pleasure to
Roses partners
partner
with us
with-
so frequently now.
Wonderful town, the Affordable Housing Trust, and Lori, who's my sidekick at the local level. It's a pleasure, really, to work in North Andover, so thank you again for your support. Good evening.
Thank you. And so, as I mentioned, not that our audience is all that heavy this evening, I was going to jump to Section 8 of the agenda under new business and take Chief Gray, who's before us this evening to discuss traffic-related issues regarding speed limits. So Chief Gray, thank you for coming.
Sure, no problem.
So,
Just so you know that while we're waiting, that we approved of your Halloween hours for the town of North Andover.
Yeah, I apologize, I'm a little late there. I have 3 kids in football, so it's back and forth, back and forth. So the speeding cars study, the town manager and I have been speaking about this for over a month now, and we were actually, at one of the last trade shows, we looked into some traffic boxes, which we had already, but they're very antiquated. And the idea is to sort of get out in front of any complaints and start doing speed studies on the roads. Those would be not only the commuting roads like Johnson Street, Chestnut Street, Salem Street, but also the cut-throughs, streets like Main Street, and to have a library of a week-long study of vehicles on a 24-hour basis. And these boxes that Lieutenant Landon is working on is basically, it's going to tell the type of vehicle, whether it's big, small, commercial grade. It's going to tell the speed. It's going to tell the time. It's going to give us, and I actually saw one we just did on Harkaway Road. It's phenomenal because it gives us hour-by-hour reports, high speed, low speeds, and sort of means of whatnot to kind of gauge when we should be doing traffic enforcement. Every street in town is different. Harkaway Road, obviously, with the school traffic and stuff, that's a focus area. But more importantly, if a resident or a group of residents want to call and, voice a complaint and say, the cars are doing 50, we can actually pull it out and say, geez, the fastest car on your street was 32 miles an hour a couple weeks ago. We'll look into the 50, but it looks like you have a pretty decent street. So again, with regards to the upcoming change in Chapter 90, Section 17C, which I think is a good thing, it's going to help us be able to gauge whether or not we want to enforce that, or I'm sorry, not enforce, but make those changes to the speed limits on a case-by-case basis as opposed to a blanket right across the town, which I don't think is a good idea. But
Could you explain what those changes are, Chief? The 90C, 9017C?
So basically, the way it works now, if everyone remembers, Boxford Street used to be, I think it was a 30-mile-an-hour zone, and a lot of people complained about it. They thought it should be a 25. So you petition the state, you have a process you have to go through, a traffic study has to take place, and they look to see if that road should be a 25, or if it can handle an increase in speed, which unfortunately for the residents, it did, and it went to 35. So Waverly Road used to be a 25 the whole stretch, I'm sorry, a 30 the whole stretch. It's now a 40 by Holy Sepulchre, because the study showed that area of road could handle it. So what this is going to do is it's going to bypass the state doing their traffic studies and basically telling us what we should do, and it's going to give us an opportunity to do our own traffic study, and obviously the power will fall on the board to make necessary changes if we need to, but again, not after diligence is done for the roadway and its use.
That's great.
This is part of the Municipal Modernization Act.
Yes.
So it gives you more control over how you set the speed limits, and you don't have to worry, you don't have to
It
rely on the
gives
state.
you more control. It gives
Yeah,
you-
but you're, out of your recommendations, though.
Yeah,
right?
yes, I mean, it, not only that, but I think it really, and transparent, makes transparent the whole process as far as like, this is your street, we have a library, you live on Salem Street, this is what we're looking at for, your particular neighborhood. I think it's a fantastic tool, and it'd be great to be able to show people, residents, this is what's going on, and especially if we do see there's a problem, we can enforce it, and we can find and, sort the time of day when we actually should be out there.
The benefit really goes to the thickly settled areas, which are currently 30 miles an hour under the code. So in the thickly settled areas, if it can be defined or described as thickly settled, then that speed limit would be able to be moved from 30 to 25. So say a handful plus have adopted the section of the statute, but if you go into a community and you see a thickly settled sign and you see 25, that's because the power has been returned back to the board to control specifically the thickly settled areas and lower the speed limit in those areas. So I think you can generally imagine what a thickly settled area is, and obviously with the chief's research and trying to gain more information about those areas and more data about what happens on certain streets, it'll help broaden the discussion beyond the thickly settled areas, which in some cases I think the chief's recommendation will be to lower those speed limits, but also in other neighborhoods where we can capture real-time data. We get a lot of calls and emails, I know, about what's happening in neighborhoods about traffic and speed, and it's all good information, but it's also helpful to capture that electronically and really look at the analytics and decide what traffic speed should be in neighborhoods and create some continuity, quite frankly, because we all recognize when we drive down any one street, especially if it's a big street, the speed limit changes, and sometimes it's difficult to figure out why. This kind of data will help us create some level of continuity around our traffic patterns and traffic speeds, and also support and give us the information necessary to communicate with our residents about those areas which are really being impacted by speed and volume of traffic.
It seems to me this is a sort of thing that's very personal to everybody who lives in this town. And I'm wondering if, as you pull this together, there's a way for folks to, kind of, hate to call it, but a dummy's guide, but it's something really simple that explains what this transparency means. Because when I think all of us have gotten those calls, I'm new to the board, Rosemary and Dick, I'm sure you've gotten many of these calls over the years, to be able to refer somebody to, hey, here's kind of the process, this is what's involved with, that sometimes is enough for people to feel, okay, I know somebody's looking at it, there's a process, it's not arbitrary, or it's not special kind of attention. I think that's really important when we've got such a great tool like this now. And I guess I would ask you, and maybe Officer Lannon, if you can put some sort of resource like that out there, thinking maybe even something that goes out through the schools, that people understand this more, because a lot of this is really about reducing people's anxiety, but it also has kind of that subtle message of, hey, you know what, we're paying attention, and
Right.
there are ways here, and it might be a nice way to kind of help you with that.
I'd be inclined to put something out, but we don't want to advertise where it is.
No, but the concept.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No,
We don't want kids doing like 70 miles an hour down the street.
Hiding behind a tree.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I think we do want to tell them, but then we may not be there.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the
Right.
cross.
It could be anywhere.
So it's the cross light that doesn't, that doesn't
Right.
actually work. Yeah, I get the concept. We could do that, put boxes everywhere. And
Right.
it's like, hey.
Right now, we're T&E in one device, and so far, we're really happy with the results and the cost.
Yeah.
So I've been speaking to the town manager about possibly adding some more, if it's that good of a resource. And, yeah, by all means, we'll put something out just to let people know we are studying this, and we take it seriously.
Yeah,
It's
no.
nice to have, especially when, there's a bad accident, like on Great Pond Road. We went out and did the traffic study right afterwards to show that it was an anomaly. It doesn't usually happen like that.
That's great.
So these boxes, are they movable? You can put them there for a week and then you can move them to the next street and do, so you've
They're not only
you've acquired a
movable,
couple and you can.
we have one,
Okay,
and they're not only movable, but they're small, they're discreet,
you don't know that.
and we can like,
We drivers don't know they're there.
right, that's the whole, yeah, exactly.
That's the
And
point, yeah.
they're fantastic so far, so it's,
Okay.
we've gone, next step technology, it's great, and the price has been,
You can't.
really good for us, so.
So you guys are taking the initiative to figure out what you believe to be the problem streets based on feedback you're getting from the community and putting them out there and starting the studies now?
Correct.
And then
So-
you'll come back to us with recommendations
Yes.
as to,
Yep.
and might there be other recommendations besides reducing the speed limit, like flashing light or a stop sign or something? Are there other means to consider
Yeah,
to
not only lights,
address
but,
these issues?
commercial restrictions for, commercial grade
Yes.
vehicles and stuff like that.
That would be nice.
Right, so
Streets I
then-
can think of.
Right, so the possibilities are really unlimited.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
nice.
And
piece
and the
of machine.
reason one is because I think that, and the chief has experienced this, is you look at a product that makes sense and you bring in the product, then you have to make sure that the product is getting you the results you want. There are a few vendors in this space, and so you want to make sure that the product you get back the information you get back is what you intended. And then, so it's not a cost item to purchase more, it's making sure we have the right product and the police department's happy with the results. And then we're doing the same kind of analytic data we're doing in other areas. We're doing analytic data on traffic, and I think to Mr. Nobley's point, the point is a question of whether we release that analytic data to drive decisions, and that's really the chief's goal. The chief's goal is to take that data, capture the data, and then use that data to make decisions about everything from deployment to traffic, traffic pattern changes to signalization to making recommendations back to the board on any number of issues. But with data in hand rather than, we think this happens, because we all do, I'm sure we could find some story about every street and a traffic-related issue, so having the data drive that really helps.
So one more question, what about state routes like 114? Is this something that we would use on 114 or not? It's not our domain because
So-
it's state.
114 is state-controlled, but 125, 133, I should say, like the area of Great Pond Road, even though it's 133, we control it, so
Okay.
it's going to vary as far as what part of the state road we're talking about. 114, the whole stretch is state.
So if somebody has a complaint about 114, we should direct them to the state Department of Transportation?
You
Well,
give
I'm
them the
saying,
number.
because Chris alluded to the fact that we are getting calls, and,
Yeah.
there's lots of discussion out there
All right, all right.
on Facebook, and people
Yeah.
reaching out to us about traffic concerns. So I just want to
Yeah,
make
and
sure I know where to.
and in a way, we need to find the right conduit, but we're interested as well in the 114, not from an enforcement perspective. I mean, 114 arguably, other than, of course, 495, is the most heavily trafficked road in the community. And there are certain things we can and cannot do, but there are also initiatives out there that are part of state and federal funding programs to do certain things to help benefit 114. And some of those may be, by the way, 10, 12 years in the making, but the kind of data or feedback that you can give us, if we can find the appropriate venue for that, can be fed back to the regional transit and planning groups to make sure that they understand what we're hearing around that. Because there's been a lot of focus on 114, and ultimately, the state has to make decisions, and if they're money-driven, those take a long time in the queue.
So maybe that can be an action item for someone to let us know
Yeah, the best way
what
to
conduit
communicate
we
that.
should
Yeah.
funnel feedback on 114 traffic
We'll figure that out.
related issues. And then on the Ask the Manager reports on a monthly basis, could
Yeah.
we talk about traffic, the studies and
Sure.
stuff,
We'll,
add something?
at some point, give the chief and I an opportunity to take a look at what these first reports look like and the data looks like, and we'll figure out some method to communicate what the chief is seeing in terms of that analytic data to give you some feedback about counts and
That'd be great.
speeds and weight and that kind of stuff, so you
Right.
can see that then. Yep.
Great. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
So jumping back to section 5 under consent items, subsection B, we have under appointments, 3 appointments this evening, one for the Historical Commission, one for the Sustainability Committee, and one for the Festival Committee. So I will let the appointment subcommittee speak to those names.
I'll do that if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, please.
So we've met with the folks listed here and would like to recommend these appointments. So James Weffers for the Historical Commission, that's a reappointment. He's served on the commission for some time, has been active and contributing member, so we would like to reappoint him. On the Sustainability Committee, we would like to recommend appointing Joanna O'Connell, who has been working on the committee in an unofficial way for the last 6 months or so. She's been actively involved in some of the sustainability projects going on in the schools, and she's got school-aged children, and I think she'll bring a great perspective to the Sustainability Committee in terms of how to bring their initiatives into the schools, such as the food rescue program and other things like that, which I think is a great thing to continue on what the town's been doing in terms of bridging school and town initiatives and capitalizing on synergies, such as what's been going on with the library and so on. So we were very excited to have her join the Sustainability Committee. And we would like to recommend appointment of Susan Martin to the Festival Committee. Susan works for CAM and has been involved in Festival Committee activities since she's been recording them for CAM, and brings a technology skill set that we think will be helpful on the committee, as we're hoping all of our boards and committees will move to more technology enablement to help them be transparent and organized and so forth. So we, again, recommend the appointment of these 3 folks to those committees, and I can look for the proper language to make a motion. Any questions on them before?
Fun fact about Susan Martin, she also works every weekend at Farmer Days at the farmer's market. It took only 10 weeks for me to connect that they were the same person, but, so, very cool. So do I hear a motion to accept the recommendations of the appointment subcommittee?
So moved.
Motion made by Selectman Smedley. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Selectman Valencourt. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Congratulations, Mr. Weefers, Ms. O'Connell, and Ms. Martin on your appointments.
And once again, we thank all of our volunteers. They're the heart and soul of our community, and they make North Andover a great place to work, live, and play, and go to school. So thank you, everybody.
So, next item on the agenda is the affordable unit resale at 1 Harvest Drive, Unit 109, which is the Oak Ridge Village - Maplewood Reserve. So this is the right of first refusal. So I'm completely jumping around. Do I hear?
Chair, I'll make a motion that we decline the right of first refusal to purchase the affordable housing unit at 1 Harvest Drive, Unit 109, Oak Ridge Village, Maplewood Reserve.
Motion made by Selectman Valencourt. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Nobley. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The next item on the agenda this evening is a donation from the North Andover Merchants Association to our fire department. I will pass the gavel to Selectman Valencourt, as I am a member of the Board of Directors, and so will be recusing myself in the appropriate way, Mr. Santilli. So.
Ray thinks that's funny. Okay, so this is just a donation from the North Andover Merchants Association. It's a tremendous organization we have in town, to donate $865 to the North Andover Fire Department to be used for the SAFE program. So we don't have anybody here from the merchants tonight, so I will hear a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen accept the donation of $865 from the North Andover Merchants Association to be used for the fire department's SAFE program.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Again, thank you to the North Andover Merchants Association. It's a tremendous organization we have in town, and they support us in a lot of different ways. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll hand the gavel back to the chairman. We accepted it.
Oh, that's great. The record show that I walked back into the room and that Mr. Santilli acknowledged my re-entrance.
Tough crowd tonight, man. Tough crowd.
Taking 2 years to make that work.
Final item under this section, under consent, we have a transfer of van from MassDOT to the town of North Andover to be used by Elder Services. I don't see anybody here this evening from Elder Services unless...
So, Mr. Chairman,
No.
they've made the recommendation, and I've forwarded that recommendation to you, so it's a van we've been using, and with your approval, we could move forward, and I could begin conversations with Mass DOT in terms of acquiring the van.
Okay, do I hear a motion for accepting the donation?
Move approval.
Motion made by Selectman Smedili. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Selectman Keen. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Do I now hear a motion to move into licensing?
Mr. Chair, I motion that we move into licensing.
Motion made by Selectman Smedili. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Seconded by Selectman Nobley. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. We're in licensing.
Okay, so we have a couple items on the agenda tonight for licensing. First is we have 2 license requests for Small Act Farms, one of them being a party on Saturday, September 23rd, from 6 to 10 in the barn, submitted by Mr. Dustin Silk for his wife's 30th birthday party. Very nice event. And then a staff appreciation dinner on Thursday, October 5th, 2017, from 4 to 8 in the tent also, not a clam bake. So, do I have a motion on those 2 events at Small Act Farms?
I hope she doesn't watch this meeting, because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's a surprise.
Well, it didn't say that. It didn't say surprise.
Oh, the invitation does.
I'm sure she
Trust me,
does.
don't repeat it. Don't
I
repeat
can
it
almost
to Janelle.
guarantee she doesn't watch this meeting.
I'm going to redact.
Dusty,
things
I'm
from the
sorry
agenda
if she
and the
does
table.
watch the meeting. I didn't realize it was a surprise. Oh, darn, it does say surprise in there.
You know,
What's the chances?
She's got 2 babies, so if she's watching this, then.
I'm thinking Nielsen ratings for this is quite high.
somebody better get over the press.
So.
Move approval.
Second.
Move.
All those, all right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
You won't get it.
No, I won't. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a request for a license, a Class 2 license at 17 Massachusetts Avenue. And this is, now we don't have the requester here. Normally I would like, we don't have any rules. I know we don't usually request them, like these licensing for Small Act Farms and such, but normally we have the
You certainly would
request.
expect they typically would be here for a new license over a Class 2, where there's
Yeah.
a fairly complicated site. That would be
Yeah.
a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, but do we communicate that to the the applicant, that they should attend the meeting? I mean, because I personally, I would like to meet the person and, you know, talk a little bit about, you know, the business and everything, and,
I can't speak for the licensing department. I would assume that they communicate the fact that it's going to come before the selectmen, and most folks we find understand the significance of that. So I think it would, my opinion would be appropriate to maybe put this off or continue the
yeah.
application until such time we can get the, especially with the meeting next week.
Yeah, I think, I agree with that. I'd like to hear a motion to table this, and then let's communicate to the applicant that we'd like to have them come in and meet them, and at least, you know, talk through their application in a little more detail.
Selectman Bellford, I might shine a little light. I actually worked with Attorney Lombard for probably about 10 years. Quite a while ago, when I had more hair, and it was not great, but, so I do know of him. He's been an attorney practicing for 30-some years.
He's the
Tremendous-
attorney who represents the applicant.
Right, so he
Not
knows
the
his
applicant.
way, he knows his way around. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised he's not here.
Maybe something came up. So, yeah, I'd like to give him the opportunity to come in and talk to the board and tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about the business. So Hopefully, putting it off 1 week is not going to cause a major issue at this point. So I would like to, and thank you for, speaking up for the attorney, but he is the attorney for the applicant, not the applicant. So I'd like to see, or have them come in and at least talk to us about it. And maybe they didn't, this meeting date changed a little bit, maybe they weren't available tonight, so we'll give them a benefit of the doubt there and give them an opportunity to come in. So if the board is so pleased, I'd like to hear a motion to table.
So moved.
Second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll table this one to our next meeting.
Which is next Monday.
Turn these all back to you for your next meeting.
Okay, so
The rest
that's
of
it
the
for
election.
licensing. I'll hear a motion to go out of licensing.
Motion to move out of licensing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're back to our meeting.
So we are back on the agenda. We have no old business this evening, and under new business, we did already hear from Chief Gray. We do also have a draft welcome guide for board and committee members that was emailed to us, but I will leave the appointment subcommittee to speak to that.
Yes, so this is a welcome guide that Selectman Nobley and I thought would be helpful for new committee members who are joining any of our boards or committees. Recognizing that a lot of times new people who've never served on a board or committee might step up and join, we hope they do, but they might not know necessarily what to expect. And it's currently just a short, 4 or 5 page document that answers what we believe might be commonly asked questions. So we welcome you to read that and give us your feedback and thoughts as to what might be missing. But we talk about things like the open meeting law, conflict of interest law, how meetings are run, the fact that there's chairpersons and that those chair people are voted on by the committee members themselves, and other such information. How to work with town employees to do the work of the committee, and so forth. So I don't expect us to go through it tonight, since we didn't get it in time for some pre-read, but
I just
if
did
you
a
could,
quick scan and was going to ask just to put it on.
yeah, we just wanted to share it. I think we have a vision that this will be updated to me, maybe a broader packet at some point with some best practices, once we get to the point of collecting some best practices from the different committees, such as how you might use technology to better enable your committee, as an example. But anyway, this is just sort of a version 1, let's say.
Has this been sent out to the different, at least the chairs of the different committees? Because they might pick up on something that we did not think of.
No, that's a good idea. We could do that. This is something also not intended to replicate what each individual committee might also have. So if you're joining a committee, assumedly that committee will have something to give you also that talks about their specific committee. And this was intended to be sort of above that in terms of just high-level information. But yes, I mean, we can certainly do that and should do that. So far, this has been, we got input from Lori, thank you very much, Lori, and from Suzanne Egan, because we talk about some of the legal matters of public meeting and so forth. And of course, our town manager is taking a look at it. Now you guys are seeing it, and then yes, we will send it to committee chairs.
I think,
It's a good idea.
and I think the other part of it too is trying to help people feel how they're kind of connected to the town and all the resources here, because one of the things that strikes us, and maybe they're just being newbies here, is that people sort of, here's your mission and off you go, and, there's not sort of a, how does that connect to everything else? What else can they draw on? What are the resources here? What do we expect back a little bit? So try and shape that a little bit as we're bringing new folks in, and I think that takes a little bit of, creates an opportunity for those folks who are really experienced on the committee to then really focus on the real work that they have in hand. And I do think that as we finalize this, certainly getting it to those, all the different chairs, I think is a great idea. In particular, it might help those that are trying to, put their own piece together, build on it. So we're really excited if you can add anything more, because we've been going back and forth. I think we're at a stuck point at this point, we're like, all right, what else? So, have at it, please.
I mean, I think it's great that you guys are taking this initiative. I think a lot of committee members have questions when they first join, and so I think, to your point, Selectman Spadili, we should have, I think you want us to have an opportunity to dig into this, because there may
Yeah.
be suggestions from us,
Yeah.
but then even the suggestion for the committee chairs, or just, again, the general public having access to it, because I know there are a lot of boards in this community that have no connection to the Board of Selectmen appointing authority, and they may just have general best practices themselves, so, great. Thank you guys for doing this.
Yeah, good job.
So, public comment, seeing nobody from the public in the audience, I will move into the town manager's report. You have,
I'm available for any questions you may have.
Move adjournment.
so,
Took care of the trash, so, I mean, that's.
Trash is important.
so our next meeting is next Monday, so we are meeting a week from today at 6 PM in this room. Correct, we are doing, we're meeting at 6, and then we'll have our strategic planning meeting. I think that agenda should be fairly light, but I did ask the Sustainability Committee to come in for their report. There was a little bit of confusion about which night they were going to come in this month, because we moved meetings. And so they're supposed to be reaching out, and ideally they will be coming next week. Again, there was some confusion with them. So otherwise, do I hear adjournment? Motion made,
Second.
seconded. All in favor? Aye. All opposed, hearing none, we're done.
Thank you.